Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm Clayton Fletcher here in New York City, joined by the legendary creator of Tournament Poker Edge itself. You know him, you love him, my man, Killingbird himself, Derek Tenbush, back on the program. How are you, Derek?
I'm doing great, Clayton. How are you, man?
I'm really good. How's the streaming life?
Stream life has been good. We haven't. It's been a really kind of a slow month for streaming because I had sort of I guess for lack of a better description, a COVID scare about 2 weeks ago. So I was down and out pretty much for like 10 solid days. Spoiler alert, I got a test and I was negative for COVID, but I had something and it took days and days to recover. It was terrible.
You mean to tell me there are diseases we can catch that are not the coronavirus?
I know, it's crazy, right? I kind of thought that it probably wasn't. Like I had some symptoms, but I didn't have a cough. I didn't have trouble breathing. I didn't have a fever. I just had a lot of like body pain and like chills. And yeah, I basically slept like 14 to 16 hours a day for like a week straight. It was pretty intense.
That actually sounds pretty good. Believe it.
Yeah, there's worse ways to be sick. But my wife like made me put my mattress in my office and live in here for 3 days before I got my COVID test results back.
Whoa.
So I was in full on quarantine mode. So I got to experience kind of what it's like, I guess, for people who are struggling, and I don't wish it upon anybody. It's like it's one thing I learned is like essentially being quarantined in your house, which is what I've been for 10 months, is way different than literally being quarantined in one room. It's horrible.
Yourself. Right, yeah. So you got a taste of what it would be like to have to quarantine with coronavirus. You also got a sense of what it might be like to be like a husband who's in trouble.
Yes, exactly.
Whose wife is really angry and says, look, you're not sleeping with me tonight, buddy. You go in the other room.
It wouldn't have been so bad if I could have played poker and stuff, but I would get up and then I would kind of sit at my desk for like an hour and do work, and then I would just be so tired. So I would just lay back down, sleep for like 3 hours. I essentially did nothing. I battled through my home game on that Tuesday night, and that was about all I've done. So
yeah.
Been kind of a little bit down in terms of poker, but we've got some sessions in the last couple of days. We're back to 100%. So
yeah, good. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm really glad you're back on the program. I think people will get. I don't know how many listeners have an appetite for more than like 3 Just Clayton episodes in a row, but it's nice to have someone to bounce the ideas off of in real time. But yeah, just for those who might be wondering about that. I don't mind doing the episodes by myself, but as Derek can certainly attest, I always reach out to the regulars on the program just before I start recording, usually a day or two ahead of time, just to see if anyone's available to come onto the podcast with me. And just lately, Derek's been sick, others have been busy. It hasn't been possible. But I always try to get a guest. My preference is to have a guest, believe me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have to tell you too. Funny but short story. I was in another poker streamer's stream yesterday, and just kind of popped in and said hello. And he was actually doing a study session, like a hand history review with a friend. And that friend was like, "Oh, that's Killingbird from Tournament Poker Edge. I just have to tell him something." And he proceeded to say, "You hiring Clayton to do the podcast is like the best decision you ever made." He said he's so good, and it's awesome that it comes out more regularly now. And I was like, I wish Clayton was here to hear this right now.
Oh, that's so cool.
I had to pass that on.
No, honestly, even secondhand, dude, that is music to my ears. I really do love doing it, and I love interacting with the fans. And I feel like that word you used, grateful, is one that comes up a lot. People are just happy to have this content, and I'm more than happy to keep giving it to them. I've said many times, I'm going to quit when I die or when you fire me, whichever comes first. So that's it. I'm in it. I love it.
I will say that I'm hoping it's because I fire you, and not because you died. I mean, I love you, but if I have to fire you to keep you alive.
Oh, I appreciate yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot. Yeah. Well, to me, it's been great for my game. I mean, just the practice of thinking about poker regularly, trying to prepare for a podcast, trying to think through my hands and how I want to approach discussing them with our listeners or with my guests. It's just been something that has really greatly improved my game, just as much as listening to this podcast before I hosted it myself was a big influence on my game as well. Hearing you and Diego and Casey and Mark go through hands was a big part of my development. So I'm glad that I can give back, I guess, and just keep the tradition going. I know you guys don't have time to do it every week anymore, as I learn every time I reach out for a guest, and nobody can join me. So that's just proof in the pudding that if we had to wait until you guys were ready, you'd be back to doing 1 or 2 episodes a year, which nobody wants. So I'm glad that I could step up and be a solution to the problem. It's not like the world has a shortage of poker podcasts right now, but I think that this one, because it's tournament specific and because we focus so much on strategy, I don't know why so many poker podcasters don't want to talk strategy. That's what people want more than anything else. Yeah, they're probably fast forwarding this, to be honest.
Yeah, they're like, all right, Clayton and Derek, it's enough.
Enough of you guys BSing. We want to hear how to play Ace Queen, and that's I respect that, because that was always my favorite part as well. But there is news in the poker world. I wanted to get your take on something I brought up last week. I touched on it last week about the the reinterpretation of the Wire Act. I don't know if you've been following this story. It kind of slid under the radar as people are waiting to hear about whether or not they're going to get a stimulus check, and whether this $15 minimum wage, like other things that are just more important in people's lives right now. But something that happened during the Trump administration has been reversed, and reversed twice. So it's basically confirmed that the Wire Act does not apply to online poker. So your thoughts on that? Do you agree with me? It feels to me like this might open some doors.
Yeah, I think so too. I kind of always judge things sort of indirectly when it comes to like legal issues and how they affect poker by what I see like the sports betting people talking about. And it seemed like a lot of the sort of sports betting community who I either follow or people I follow and they retweeted it or whatever, they seem to think that this was a pretty big deal, which means that it's probably a big deal for poker too, I would think. I'm always just really interested in how these dominoes fall. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so now we've decided this does not apply to poker, but what does that mean? Like, what operator is now going to step up and go, oh, cool, well, we'll launch a poker site in North Carolina then. I'm just waiting to see how that works. But it seems positive to me. I'm always cautiously optimistic about this kind of stuff because we've kind of had good news in the past. We've had bad news in the past. And I kind of feel like we're still in the same place we were, a day after Black Friday to some degree. I mean, obviously some states have started to regulate and things like that. But the timing is good. The other thing I wanted to say is the timing is good, too, I think, for poker, because I think you're going to have states who are suffering financially due to the COVID crisis, and they're going to be looking for ways to generate revenue, and whether that's weed or sports betting or poker or whatever it might be, they're going to be looking for opportunities, and it would seem like this would open the door for some state to go, oh, cool, here's a way for us to make some millions of dollars.
Yeah, well, the governor of my state, Andrew Cuomo, he's basically become a libertarian in the last few days. He's talking about legalizing drugs, gambling, sex work. He's like a full-on libertarian because New York State is out of money, basically. And New York City has been probably hardest hit of any region in the state. But there are other metropolitan areas in New York that are really suffering as a result of this ongoing pandemic. And it does appear that there's some sort of glimmer of light at the end of this tunnel, but who knows whether or not things will ever get back to where they once were, ever in New York. Some people think New York is dead and that it's not going to ever come all the way back. I have a more optimistic view, partially because I'm biased because I love this city so much. But yeah, I like the way the governor is talking right now. Let's just say, I mean, I don't think I've made too big a secret of this on the podcast. I tend to want the government to stay as much out of my life as possible. And I think a lot of poker-loving people are the same. I think it's ridiculous. I have to go to New Jersey to play legal, regulated online poker. And if I don't go to New Jersey, I have to play on sites that, we just don't know how legit some of them are. We don't know what we're getting into. And we just know that the government's not involved with them, which can't be a good thing. So I think that's silly. I mean, obviously, we created Texas Hold'em in America, and other countries get to play, and we don't. It's stupid. So I'm not going to go on any further libertarian political rant or anything, but it is kind of fun to see Cuomo, who used to be a nanny-in-chief, changing his tune in the last week or two, really trying to figure out a way to get some money back flowing in this state, and a lot of it ends up being vices. So let's go vices.
I'm just shocked to find out that sex work isn't already legal in New York City. It sure seemed like it when I was there.
Yeah, it may be rampant, but that doesn't mean it's technically legal. Oh, and they also don't use the word legalize for anything. They say decriminalize, which I don't really know what the difference is, but certainly a lawyer would be able to explain why they use that word all the time. But it's ridiculous. It's like, what's the difference between an LOA and a contract? I don't know, but somebody somewhere does. And legalize versus decriminalize, I don't know. It's ridiculous. Seems like everything in life has a euphemism now. So we'll see.
Well, they can call it whatever they want. Just let us play some poker.
Exactly. Who cares? Use your legal terms all you want, but just get out of my life and let me shuffle up and deal. Is that too much to ask? Well, apparently it is. But maybe not for long with this Wire Act thing. So that's pretty cool. So I wanted to touch on that. So you sound cautiously optimistic. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I've always held the stance that we're going to see poker fully regulated and fully legal in all states eventually. It's just a matter of how long, which states, in which order, So I'd like them to move faster, but we shall see. I
remember right after Black Friday, a lot of players I knew were making side bets on how long it would take for PokerStars to be allowed in America. Again, that was the big site. PokerStars and Full Tilt were the two biggest internet poker sites at the time. And I know several players who bet that everything would be back to the way it was by the end of that year.
Oh, jeez.
Over 10 years ago now, right? I mean, what year was that? 2009?
Yeah, I guess it was. Man, we're getting old, huh?
Yeah, some of our listeners don't even know what Black Friday is, so good for you if you were never logging into your PokerStars account to see this big American flag on your screen saying this website has been seized by the federal, blah blah blah. Yeah. Ridiculous. But we thought it was just about money and that they would make a deal to get a share of the revenue and that everybody would be happy. But instead, it has just been this ongoing, nonstop legal battle, partially funded, at least on the other side, by Sheldon Adelson, who recently passed away, and kind of made it his life's work to try to prevent online gambling from becoming as ubiquitous as you and I would like to see it become. And he spent a lot of money making sure that the candidates he was helping to get elected would understand what he expected in return for that. And most of them, did his bidding. Whether we lean right or left, we cannot deny that people were doing what Sheldon Adelson wanted them to do, and that's a big reason why we don't have legal online poker in 50 states today.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this on the show last week. I don't think it's a coincidence necessarily that within days of him passing, like this ruling came down. It's just kind of like, okay, we're all free now. Like, we can do what we want now. We're no longer in this guy's pocket.
Yeah. I mean, they're in other people's pockets, but those guys aren't as. This isn't their like their dying wish. I don't know. This guy, he was really against it. And anyway, I think he was wrong. I think online gambling helps brick and mortar casinos, but I don't know. I guess he had his own reasons why he felt that way. But anyway, rest in peace, Sheldon. I wonder how many of my friends will set foot inside the Venetian now who didn't before because he owned it.
I have debated that. What am I going to do next time I go to Vegas? Am I going to play at the Venetian?
Right.
But I just assume the money's still going to some bad person. So there's plenty of other options in Vegas. It just won't be the Venetian or Bally's.
Right. Yeah, I'm a huge, as everyone knows, I'm a huge Bally's fan after they didn't even care that all my things were stolen from out of their hotel room. Oh my God, that was the worst. So yeah, all right. So what else I want to mention before we do your hand? I know you brought a really juicy strategy hand. You never disappoint in that area. Oh, but let's talk about Daniel and Doug. What do you think of this new thing that's going on? Daniel's tanking. Tell us what he's doing and why.
Yeah, so I was just reading about this today, actually, on Twitter. I mean, I guess it started today, perhaps, in their session, but essentially, yeah, every action, I guess Daniel is taking the maximum amount of allotted time. So, I'm sure everybody listening to this has played online poker at one point or another, and you have the little countdown timer. It's like, 20, 19, 18, not necessarily as time banked, but the actual time to act. And he's essentially using it all every street. So even pre-flop, he lets it count all the way down, then he raises, or if Doug 3-bets, Daniel takes the full amount of time and then folds or calls or whatever he's going to do. And apparently it's essentially he's just trying to tilt Doug, it seems like. So there's this debate raging between Team Doug and Team Daniel about whether this is right or fair or ethical. So yeah, I just thought it was kind of interesting. And so people dug up some old tweets from Daniel from years ago about how people need to act faster in poker and how it's ruining the game and everything. And then they're like, oh, really? A little change of tune on this, huh? And I mean, I don't know. My opinion on it is pretty straightforward. It's legal. You're certainly allowed to do it. You have the amount of time to act for a reason, but it doesn't necessarily make it good for the game or the right thing to do, particularly in a challenge where you're kind of forced to. I mean, Doug doesn't have a whole lot of choice at this point but to play. If it was me and I was sitting down with somebody doing that, I would just get up and go play somebody else, So I don't know. I also don't know that it's necessarily going to work against Doug. Doug doesn't have the kind of guy who's going to let something like that tilt him. He might get a little bit angry about it, but I don't think it's going to affect his play. Yeah, it kind of feels,
it feels a little desperate on Daniel's part. Now this match is actually going on. Actually, it looks like they just stopped playing for the day as we record this on Wednesday, January 27th. I've been watching the match, and Doug was up a little over 100,000, and when last I checked. So I guess Daniel, if that was Daniel's plan, it doesn't appear to have at least affected the results of today's play. But going forward, if Daniel's plan is to use the max time on every single decision in an effort to tilt Doug, I think he runs the risk of just looking like a sore loser. Possibly not tilting Doug in any way, and causing fewer people to want to watch the heads-up match. And I always thought that part of the reason for wanting to have this match was to kind of drum up some interest in high-stakes heads-up cash games or poker in general. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, aren't they doing it partly for the fans? Maybe not. Maybe he bet so much on himself that he really needs to get this thing right. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's because it certainly, I mean, I wasn't watching today, but I can't imagine that it was particularly fun to watch, just kind of sitting there every hand taking 3, 4, or 5 minutes or whatever. I mean, it kind of goes back to the classic, like, our players supposed to be ambassadors for the game or whatever, but I don't even know if that's really a question we can apply to Daniel, because he has essentially chosen to be, if not the ambassador, one of the ambassadors of poker, one of the biggest ambassadors of poker. He's kind of chosen that route by being sponsored and running his master classes and doing all these different things. So, if you're going to embrace that, you're going to take all the good parts of that ambassadorship, then you kind of have to be willing to suck it up and, maybe not do what is the best thing for your game because it's annoying.
Right. Well, maybe he's got some other reason why he's doing this. Maybe he really wants to just actually think really hard about each and every decision. I mean, they only have, I don't know, 5,000 or 6,000 hands left to play, and that might sound like a lot, but they're about 80% of the way through the match at this point. And when I last checked before today, Doug was up like something like 550,000. So if he won another 100 today, he's going to be up like close to 700,000. So that's that. Daniel's running out of time to get it back. So maybe he's just trying to be extra careful because each decision is worth possibly literally tens of thousands of dollars per decision if you consider all the side action that they have, which I don't know. Nobody actually knows exactly how much money has been wagered on the side, but I know Doug has a lot more than just the millions that he's winning and losing in this match because he's got a lot of side action on himself, and then a lot of Daniel's friends, of course, bet on Daniel as well, and getting something like 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, whatever. So I don't know. Why else could he be doing it though? If not to tilt Doug, do you think there's any credence to the theory that it might just be to try to concentrate a little bit?
I mean, I guess if it was, and I need to go maybe watch the replay or something and see just how frequently it's happening and in what spots it's happening.
It's like every hand.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess if it was something, if he wasn't doing it like, let's say when he open folds the button or whatever, I guess I would kind of get it. But if he's just doing it all the time, then it can only be to tilt him. I think, it's not like you have that big of a decision to make if you got, I don't know, do 7 offsuit pre or whatever, like just do, but I'm also not a high stakes heads up cash game player. So who knows? I'm sure he'll come out and explain why he was doing it because he's been pretty open about everything up until this point. So
definitely. Yeah. I expect Daniel to, put it all out there like he always does. Now, have you ever played with a tanker at your table in a tournament situation where you did not have the option of leaving or asking for a table change?
Only really live, at least that I've noticed, because I usually play anywhere from 4 to 8 tables. So even if somebody were doing it at one of my tables, I'd probably barely notice just because I have 6, 7 other tables going that I'm focused on. But I have had it live, and it is definitely pretty annoying. And eventually people start calling them out and saying things like, dude, do you really have to take that long every decision? And then sometimes that makes them move faster, and sometimes it seems like it just makes them go even slower.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty quick to call the clock on people in tournaments. I mean, I don't really call the clock in cash games. It's annoying, but in a tournament it actually costs me money because it's fewer hands per hour, and then the next level and whatever. I mean, I called the clock so many times on players in my deep run in 2018 World Series main event that they actually wrote about me in the Poker News reporting. When I busted out, the reporter wrote something like, those of us who are covering this event will miss the way Clayton was calling players to the task for they kind of gave me a shout out like we're going to miss having someone stand up for us, especially like the guy holding the camera. He's got to stand there and hold that ESPN camera and he's just waiting like endlessly for you to make your decision. If you don't know what you're going to do after a minute or two, I'm going to call the clock on you basically every time. You should never take that long. Now, if it's a player who's always really swift and never waste my time, like you earned it. You can have a tank or two.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'll give you that. But it's the chronic tanking, the ones who just can't help themselves. It reminds me of my acting teacher. When I went to college, I studied theater, and one of my best acting teachers I had said you should never take a pause in a scene that you haven't earned. And I thought that it was very well said, because it just means that you got to keep the scene moving, so that if there is a time when you pause for dramatic effect, it means something, because the rest of the scene was clipping along, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this line must have a certain amount of gravity.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that's the same with tanking. If you overuse it, then it just becomes annoying, and the rest of the table is like over you. I played with William Kassouf once too, and that's
geez.
Yeah, it's probably the worst poker experience I've ever had.
I mean, Kassouf's kind of a good person to bring up, because it's a similar situation where most of what Kassouf did was perfectly legal and within the rules of the game of poker, but it just doesn't mean that it's good.
Right, and it was with the intention of tilting everybody. I think that he does that because he wants people to be annoyed with him. And if anyone doesn't know him, congratulations, you have not been exposed yet to the worst person in poker, or one of them. But yeah, he never makes a decision quickly. He likes to sit there and talk, and he likes to goof around, but he has like 3 or 4 different catchphrases that he uses every single time. And after a while, it becomes so annoying. It's like, you need some new material, dude. Like, if you're going to do a monologue every time it's your turn to act, it can't be the same monologue I just heard 2 minutes ago. But
right.
I don't know. He's got psychological problems.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So anyway, it should be interesting to see how Doug responds and what the poker community does to Daniel after tonight. And by the time this episode is released on Friday, I'm sure that a lot of this discussion will have happened. But my prediction is the Daniel fans will say it's brilliant, and the Doug fans will say it's bad for the game. So
yeah, I think you're right.
People are Team Daniel, Team Doug. It's just it's a black and white world nowadays. Nuance is lost.
Yeah.
Nuance is a thing of the past, I think. You're either with me or you have to be counted against me, Derek.
That's right. Well, I'm with you.
All right. Cool. So let's hear about this hand. Is this one that you played recently since you recovered from your illness?
Yeah, in fact, I actually just played this last night.
Oh, great. So it's fresh in your mind.
Yeah, this was the 1650 20K guaranteed on the ACR.
I've played that tournament before. They do it every day, right?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's nice and deep. You start with 50K in chips, so it's super deep, and it gets a lot of runners, obviously, since it's 20K. And it's a lot of soft players, it seems like. So I like this tournament a lot. I think it's like the recreational players shot taking tournament, you know?
Yeah.
The guys who might be normally playing from 3 to 11 or whatever, but they're like, $3 to $11 buy-ins. But they see this one like, oh, big guarantee, just a little bit more than my normal buy-in, I'm in.
Yeah.
So I try to fit this one in whenever I can.
Yeah, I agree. I've played this tournament before. I found it pretty soft, and it's good times. So yeah,
definitely. So we are fairly early in this. I don't remember how many levels we were in, but we're at 375, 750, and like I said, we start with 50K. But I had actually tripled up a bit before this, where I was fortunate enough to have kings against 10s and ace king on a king 10x board.
Wow. That is a triple up flop, isn't it?
Yeah, I managed to get it all in and somehow fade some weird crazy quads or something to lose. So we have basically tripled our stack up. We're at just under 140K at this point.
Now, you don't get those bad beats. Like, you don't get the quads against your set because you're a shill, right? Isn't that why?
I'm a streamer, damn it.
You're on the Stormer team, so you run pure as gold, right?
That's right. That's my catchphrase that I like to break out when I bad beat somebody or something. Like, hey, what can I say? I'm a streamer.
What can I say? I'm a streamer.
So we ran pure in that spot.
I had to throw that in.
Let's see how pure we run in this particular spot.
Okay.
So again, 375, 750 are the blinds. We are under the gun 1. It folds to us, and we have ace of spades, king of hearts.
Yeah, now we have everyone at our table well covered if we tripled up, right?
Yeah, there's only one other person that has over 100K. Everybody else is basically between 30 and 70K.
Okay, so it's going to be a deep stack, no limit hand for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So not a huge shock. We decide to open our ace king. We make it 1999. So about 2.5x.
So we're in second position under the gun +1.
Yep.
And after one fold with ace king, we decide to make it 1999. So it's about 2.3, 2.2. What is that?
Yeah, right. It's right around 2.4.
Oh, it's a little more. Okay, right. Oh, right, because it's 750 in the big one. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, it might even be a little more than that. Maybe like 2.6. I'm so bad at math.
Okay, yeah. All right.
But let's call it 2.5.
Okay, it's a little more. And a little,
if I wasn't so intent on making everything 999 at the end, it would be a lot easier. But that's my trademark. So
that's fine. That's fine. All right.
So then the guy immediately to our left, who is the only other person over 100K, calls.
Okay.
And the very next person to him raises to 9,000.
Ooh. Okay.
So kind of spicy. It folds all the way back around to us.
Okay.
And we have a decision to make here.
Yes, we do. Now, what do you make of that call, first off? Because in my experience, when I raise from early position and the player to my immediate left calls, that's usually a very strong hand.
Yeah, I think in general I'm going to give him a pretty strong range. I mean, I do think it's possible, and based on his numbers, I don't know that this is necessarily true, but I was going to say there are people who, when they're this deep, like to just splash around with like 6-7 suited and 8-9 suited, maybe just small pairs that they just want to see a flop, try to hit a set and move on. But I would lean towards stronger holdings.
Okay. Yeah, and by the way, if you're among those players, that is a losing strategy for sure. You are deep stacked, and you're going to have the worst relative position to the early position raiser, who happens to be Derek Tenbush, who is a known nit. So
That's right.
the nit raises from early position. It's going to be ace king, ace queen, big pairs. I don't think that, Derek, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you have a lot of like 7-5 suited in your range here.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could certainly be raising like I'd raise all my pairs here.
Okay.
Ace,
even small pairs. Okay.
I mean, I think this deep I probably do. I don't know, maybe not like deuces, 3s, 4s. I'd probably raise 5s plus for sure, though.
All right. Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, it's pretty much probably like ace jack suited plus.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's get into why this is such a bad call by him if he doesn't have a strong value hand. Number one, you've got all the players yet to act behind you, any of whom could 3-bet. And then if you don't have a strong enough hand to call that 3-bet, you basically just thrown this money away when you didn't really have to, right?
Right.
And then this is just as important. If he ends up in the middle of you and, say, one other caller behind him, he has the worst position because you're the player who's most likely to bet the flop, and then he has to act before the other player.
Yeah.
And so he's in a sandwich for the rest of the hand. I mean, you
Yep.
don't want to put yourself in these spots. I mean, if you want to speculate, you should do so from late position and never from right next to the original raiser from early position, unless you have a hand that justifies getting involved in this bad spot. I mean, he's in the worst possible relative position. And now you guys are facing the 3-bet. I mean, you, by no coincidence, have a strong enough hand to go up against that 3-bet because you wouldn't be opening too many junk hands from early position in the first place. And this is part of the reason why. You want to be able to keep playing. So your question is, do I want to call or do I want to 4-bet? And I mean, we're certainly not trying to get all in here. I mean, we have way too many chips to be happy to get all in with ace king. But how many does the 3-better have? What kind of stack does he have?
The 3-better has 104 big blinds. So
Yeah,
he started
that's
the
too
hand with
many.
like 75.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too in the heat of the moment. And it's worth noting too that this the three betters 3-bet percentage is 5%. So he's not like a habitual 3-better.
Yeah, there's nothing maniacal about a 5% 3-bet percentage.
Yeah, and he's doing it against, as we mentioned, a tight under the gun one opener and a flat. So I don't think he's getting out of line here necessarily.
Yeah, it's not a spot that most aggressive players would see as an opportunity. Maybe if you were the raiser and it folded to him, he might 3-bet with some kind of range. But that call in between you guys, I think that's a scary call for me. So, yeah, I think that his 3-bet range should be value heavy, possibly with no bluffs at all in it. Honestly, in this tournament, this $15 tournament, I don't expect it to be balanced here at all. I think it's going to be value heavy. So it should be, your hand, ace king, maybe ace queen, probably not ace jack if he knows what he's doing. And then, pairs like 9s and up seems to be like a reasonable range for him to have. So against that range, we don't really want to be 4-betting anyway.
Yeah, I think I agree. We block aces and kings, so I worry a little bit less about those. But we're essentially just kind of begging to get it in flipping for 100 big blinds, which I just think we can take a different approach.
Yeah, there's no reason to do that. There's just no reason to. I mean, you got so lucky to triple up with your kings. So why do you want to risk most of that?
Right.
On a flip, on what's at best a flip here. I mean, just because you have an ace and a king doesn't mean he never is going to show up with the worst bad news of all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could happen. So yeah, I'm really in favor of just calling here and be happy to take a flop with your ace king.
Agreed, and that is exactly what we do. We call the 9,000, and then our friend to our left threw away 2,000 chips because he folds. So
okay. All right,
he got what he had coming to him.
Yeah, this drives me crazy. I mean, this is really bad poker. Like, you've already made one mistake, which is calling with obviously not that strong of a hand, and now you're getting priced in to call with that not so strong hand. I mean, what kind of odds is this guy getting by the time this guy makes it 9,000 and you call 9,000? That's 18,000 plus what was already in there. I mean, this is crazy for him to fold. There's no hand I would fold getting those pot odds. So
yeah, he's getting like 3-1.
Yeah, deep stacked getting 3-1, even in his relative bad position. It's a call. I'm sorry. I mean,
all the hands we kind of discussed that he could be doing this with, like the small pairs and the suited connectors, are all getting a great price to see a flop here. I mean, if you have like 7-8 suited here, you're just like, all right, let's see some hearts or whatever, whatever you need.
And deep stack poker is about speculating. So, I mean, I don't like him choosing to speculate from this position, but then choosing to not speculate when given these odds is a mistake. So, if you're going to make that call in the first place, you have to defend against a 3-bet. I'm sorry, you just have to call. So,
yep.
He's a bad player. You can mark him down as a bad player.
Got him noted.
Yeah.
All right. So he folds, like I said. We go to a flop. There's now 21.9K in the middle. And the flop comes ace, 10, 8, rainbow. Ace of diamonds, 10 of hearts, 8 of spades. So I feel pretty good about this flop. I think he's going to have a lot of like 10s, jacks, queens. I mean, he sometimes is going to have ace king like we do. Maybe he's possibly got 10s, flop a set, which we don't feel great about. But in general, I mean, when we flat ace king, this is pretty much what we're hoping for. So
yeah, I mean, this is the ideal flop for ace king. And yeah, we can worry about pocket 10s, pocket 8s, even pocket aces if we want to worry about everything. But mostly, we should have a strategy of, showing down this ace king, come hell or high water.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I don't see any reason for us to like lead here or anything tricky like that. I think if he's got jacks or queens, let's just check it over to him and make sure he bets it at least once, and we get some value.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's probably going to fold those hands if we lead. So yeah, there's no the solvers don't have us ever leading in these heads up situations. So
Yeah.
I would trust their the solvers have played a lot more hands than I have. So let's
That's right. Yeah. So we do go ahead and check, and he bets 8K even into the 21.9K. So pretty smallish, not like outlandishly small, but on the smaller side. Which I don't know if there's all that much we can read into this. I mean, if he has like tens, then he's just making a really nice small value bet, and if he's got like queens or jacks, he's just trying to get us to fold for the least, the smallest investment he can. I think.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a lot to read into this bet sizing, and I mean, I'll ask you, but I also don't think really want to do anything here but call. It's a pretty dry board. We're not really worried about a whole lot of like turns.
Well, the advantage to check raising here is only when he's got ace queen. Like I did say, I thought that ace queen could be part of his 3-betting range. A lot of players just won't ever flat with ace queen. They want to 3-bet it. So we do lose some value, potential value at least, in that unusual scenario. But yeah, I don't know. I think all things considered, it's better to just call and hopefully see if we can get him to bluff again on the turn when he doesn't have an ace. And you know what, Derek? If we're beat, we're going to just lose a ton of chips on this hand.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm not going to try to. I'm not trying to find a fold with ace king.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably there might be some runouts where it could happen, I suppose. Like I don't know, it runs out king queen or something.
Yeah, that's pretty
4 to a
bad.
straight or something. But
yeah, and we're worried about kings. We're worried about pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks. More so queens and jacks, just because we don't know where any of the queens and jacks are at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we know where 2 aces and 1 10 and 1 king are. So just combinatorically, we're more concerned that our opponent would get lucky with a queen or a jack, but it's such a small chance. It's 2 outs. We're not going to worry about that until it happens. But yeah, I agree. If both a king and a queen, or both a jack and a queen, came off on the turn and river, then I might consider folding. But short of that disastrous nightmare scenario, I'm happy to just keep checking and keep calling.
Yeah, I think I like that. So we do just call. That brings us to 37.9K in the pot, and we get the 8 of diamonds on the turn. So now the board reads 8, 10, ace, 8. There are 2 diamonds out there. We do not have any diamonds, for what it's worth.
And he's got something like 60-ish behind?
Yeah, he's got 60.5K left.
Okay, all right.
And like I said, there's 37.9 in the middle, so...
All right.
So we kind of stick with our plan here, like we just discussed, and we check. And he bets pretty small again, 11,000 into 37.9K.
So the turn was the 8 of hearts? 8 of
diamonds.
8 of diamonds, which put 2 diamonds on the board. So our board is now ace, 10, 8, 8.
Yep.
With 2 diamonds. And, there's some... Yeah, this is one of the best cards in the whole deck for us. This is a great card. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to check and hope we can get this guy to keep betting into us. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so we do check, and he does bet, like we said, 11,000, and we just call again. Again, I think, like you said, ace-queen's probably the one thing we could be targeting here with a check raise on the turn, or if we had done it on the flop. But I think it's just such a narrow part of his range that I'd prefer to just kind of let him keep bombing, or whatever he's doing. Quarter potting.
Yeah, I mean that's the odd thing is it's just such a small sizing. Like I'm all on board with the small sizing with his full range on the flop. So if I'm in villain shoes, I would bet 8,000 with my ace queen, ace king, pocket aces, pocket tens, pocket eights. I'm not even sure he has pocket eights as a 3-bet pre. given that you raised from early, he might not even have that. So yeah, aces, tens are the sets. And then, I guess turning my kings or my queens or my jacks into a bluff, 8,000 is fine. I do that sometimes, like when I've 3-bet pre-flop with kings or aces, or kings or queens, I should say, and then the ace comes off and my opponent checks, I still try to rep that ace. So I'm fine with him betting 8,000 with those hands as well. But then this small bet on the turn is a little bit strange. He's not taking any steps to polarize himself. He's basically representing a hand that's trying to get value from a 10.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because I don't know what tens I have.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't either.
And it, like, if I'm in his shoes and I have kings here or queens or jacks, I kind of feel like I'm checking back the turn.
Yeah, it's strange. His bet is strange. It feels now more like, maybe it is ace queen sometimes where he's trying to get value from worse aces. You might have made a loose call pre-flop. Like if he has ace king, you might have made a loose call pre-flop with ace queen or ace jack.
Yeah. Yeah, ace king would make a lot of sense for him. I guess the question is if we think he's strong here, is there really any reason to raise? Because basically ace queen is the only strong hand that we want to get action from. In other words, if he does have tens or aces or eights, we're not really trying to get it in, although we might not be able to get around it at this point.
Well, it doesn't have to all go in. I mean, if you check raise, it all goes in a lot. But I think just calling here is the best way. I mean, this pot is plenty big for me with one pair. Well, two pair, technically, if you count the eights, right?
Sure.
I mean, for the strength of our hand, this is about the right pot size. So I'm not looking to inflate this pot simply because our opponent starts with 100 big blinds, and trying to get 100 big blinds in with one pair is usually a bad idea. So, this board is so dry though, and ace queen keeps standing out in my mind as a hand that would bet twice. Other hands that would bet twice do include pocket aces, which we block, and pocket tens, which we block. Which we don't block, but of course we block ace queen too, don't we? So,
well, yeah, good point.
It's very hard to put him on any hand that should be playing this way. Maybe pocket tens, but
yeah,
ace queen, ace king, pocket tens are the value hands that I think can make this bet. And I don't know what bluffs he has. I think that in a $15 ACR tournament, the 3-bet from an early position raise and an early position call, and then he's very next in line, like that's just not going to end up being a bluff, like hardly ever.
Right.
All three of you guys are in early position, basically.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's not a spot where many players will have any bluffs. Right. But he could be bluffing now. Like if he's betting queens right now, he's bluffing.
Yeah.
But I don't know what he's trying to get a fold from.
Yeah, because I don't know what we call. I mean, unless in his mind he's thinking, well, I made it so small that he might just him talking about me. I made it so small, and he has so many chips that maybe he'll just call me down with kings or queens or nines or whatever, whatever he thinks he can get me to call quarter pot size bets with.
Yeah. I mean, at that point...
I mean, he clearly doesn't know me very well because I'm a nit and I would have folded all those hands by now.
Yeah, he couldn't get any value from a 10 or from pocket jacks or anything. No, not from you. But yeah, that's a good point. He may not know you as well as all of us do. Maybe he has never visited twitch.tv/Killingbird, which I don't know what's wrong with him if that's the case. But yeah, you are a known nit, and so he should not be trying to get value from you. So I don't know. It's a strange bet no matter what. Generally speaking, we want our turn bet sizing to be a little bit bigger as a percentage of the pot than our flop bet sizing generally. And there are, a whole litany of reasons why that if you're interested, Andrew Brokus covers this sizing issue in rather graphic detail in his recent hand review, also from ACR, where he went deep in, I think it was a $50 ACR tournament, whatever Andrew's most recent series is. He actually talks about this quite a bit, but it has to do with the turn is a good time for denying equity, and the flop is a good time for having a wider range. So yeah, it is interesting because there's a lot of theory behind it, but in this spot, I don't think there are too many hands that I would personally bet 11,000 into 38,000 with myself. I'm having trouble coming up with any really. So It seems like a strange sizing, no matter what he has.
Yeah, I would agree. It certainly made me curious what was going to happen on the river, I will say.
Yeah.
I'm like, is he trying to set up a big river shove here, or is he trying to get to showdown sort of cheap?
Yeah, he's going to have a little less than if we call, he'll have a little bit less than a pot size bet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, he could be trying to set up a river shove, which would not be pleasant for us, but okay, well, let's see. We just call here on the turn, right?
Yes, that's correct. So, yeah, we just call. There's now just under 60K in the pot. He has 49.5K behind, and the river is a 7 of clubs.
Okay, so the final board is ace, 10, 8, 8, 7, and no flush came in.
Correct.
All right, so possible straights are 9, 6, and Jack 9.
Yes.
And that's it. So we're not at all worried about a straight, right? We could be behind pocket aces, pocket tens, quad eights, and if we really got unlucky on the river, pocket sevens.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like we're ahead so often here that I just want to check and hope he bets again and I can call him.
Try to give him a bluff again.
Yeah.
That is what we do. We do check, and he shoves.
Oh, no. Okay.
And it's really interesting because, well, in two ways it's interesting. Like at this point, is he trying to get me to fold an ace when he has pairs of jacks, queens, or nines, or sixes, or like I guess what I'm saying is, like, they always say every poker hand has a story, and it's like chapter 1 is the flop, and well, now we're at the final chapter, and it's like, well, this story is really coming together as though this guy has a hand.
Yeah. Yeah, he really does. The story is that he does.
Right.
Here's my question. Let's try to answer this question because I think it's kind of a key to this decision. Do you think your opponent would make this play with ace queen?
I think if we assume they would play ace queen pre-flop the way they did, in other words, that there's somebody who 3-bets ace queen in that situation, I think they would. They'd have to, because they might think if we had ace king, we would have just gotten it in pre, which I think you and I both agree is not a great idea. But they might be like, well, he doesn't have ace king because he didn't want to get it in pre. So he might just think ace queen is a great hand. But I guess then the question becomes, well, if I don't have ace king and he has ace queen, then what do I have? Like ace 9?
Yeah. One hand that would play this way is ace 10, but I don't think ace 10 should be 3-betting from fourth position after second position opened and third position called. That just seems really wild to me. I mean, I know people do it, and the most compelling evidence we have that we're beat is this very large river bet after two very small bets on the flop and turn.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to magically summon all the hands where people have bet really small on the flop, really small on the turn, and then bombed river against me, to see what that is. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
across the whole population, you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially in tournaments like this one, where I wouldn't really expect him to try to double up here unless he... I mean, why would he take such a huge risk? He still has 50,000 chips, and the big blind is 750. So it's not like he's in any desperate straits here. It seems like another small value bet, if he thinks his hand is good, actually makes a lot of sense. But the fact that you've called twice does strengthen your range a lot, and you're saying you have an ace, and he's saying he can beat an ace.
Yeah, like I think my hand is pretty face up.
It feels like it's ace. You should have ace queen, ace king a lot, I think, the way you're playing this. I don't know if you would check and not raise with a set on the turn. But you would check.
I think he can kind of assume I never have a set here, or well, I guess what is now a full house.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, when you make a full house or quads on the turn, I think that you are typically going to check raise on that street. And so the fact that you didn't, it kind of caps you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so because you're capped, it could embolden him if he knows what he's doing. Do you have numbers on this player? Because I don't know what his HUD stats are, if you know them.
I do 23, 17, 5. So
those are reg stats. Like those are like what you expect a $15 like reg on ACR to have, which means he probably plays a lot of tournament poker. I don't know, Derek. We need to have some bluff catchers in our range, and I'm not happy about putting this many chips in with ace king, but because it's so hard for us to be beat, if we got unlucky, we got unlucky. I'm not folding. I call.
Yep. That was the conclusion I came to. I think in the moment, and I don't know if this is really a good way to think about it, but at the time I was like, well, I kept checking for a reason to get him to keep betting. So I'm going to go ahead and call that. I'm not veering from my plan.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, there's a lot of logic to that. I mean, you were trying to induce bluffs, and now you've induced bets. We don't know if you induced bluffs or if he's just, somehow got ace king beat in this spot. If you're beat, then the most likely hand you're beat by is probably pocket tens.
Yeah.
But sets are rare. I don't know. I cannot talk myself into throwing ace king away here. We didn't 3-bet, and we didn't 4-bet it pre-flop. We under-repped our hand all along, checking and calling. We were very not aggressive with ace king, and so when you're under-repped, you kind of have to pay off.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I think I agree, and we hit the old call button. He turns over pocket nines, and we scoop the pot.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's just blind aggression on his part. Now, I know these tournaments allow rebuys for 5 hours, but you don't have to keep paying that rate, guys. You've got
I know.
You've got another, what does he have? 70 blinds that he just shoveled in on the end.
Yeah, and I don't really mind the 3-bet pre. Kind of take control of the hand. He's got position on me, whatever. And I certainly don't mind him c-betting this flop because we can have a lot of small pairs and stuff that we fold on this board. But how he finds the third barrel, I just don't know.
Well, the only
it's
logic...
so unnecessary.
It's totally unnecessary, Derek. But the only logic that exists for shoving is that you block both possible straights. But if you know anything about Killingbird, you know that he never, ever, ever has Jack 9 or 9-6.
Right.
So blocking those hands to the extent that it means we don't have them, I could have told you 2 years ago we don't have them. We don't have those hands. We are Derek Tenbush. We do not raise from under the gun +1 with 9-6 or Jack 9. We don't do that.
Nope.
So we never have a straight, so you don't have to worry about blocking. You know, I think people take this blocker thing too far sometimes, and that's probably what happened here, because he does block all the straights.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too because he made that small turn bet, and I almost kind of don't even hate that so much because it just kind of allows him to like dictate the price and then just check out back like all rivers. But then he didn't check back the river, like, because if he just checks behind on the turn, then I'm gonna bet the river pretty large, thinking my ace king is good like always, and he's gonna have to fold his 9s. But maybe he's just like, well, if I just bet 11K here on the turn, he's just gonna check to me again on the river. I can check and just go to showdown, and maybe my 9s are good. Maybe it's gonna draw or whatever. But yeah, I just don't understand the bomb because, like I said, I feel like my hand is pretty face up.
Well, yeah, it is. It is on the turn. And that's partly why he might have felt empowered, because, again, your best hands are probably going to check raise on the turn.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And so the fact that you capped your range made him think, well, maybe I can get this guy to fold ace X, whatever he's got. You know, now in your shoes, some players could have a hand as bad as ace 5 suited, right? Suited aces are hands that some players will open, especially like if they have wheel potential. Ace 5, ace 3s, hands like that will open, and then a deep stacked call this 3-bet, right? And now you flop just a pair of aces with no kicker, and I think a hand like that might have to fold the river because you have to worry about the 3-better having ace king. So right. I don't really think your hand is as face up as you think it is, but it does feel like you should have an ace a lot when you call on 4th Street. So he's trying to blow you off an ace, which trying to get a player in a $15 tournament to fold top pair during the re-entry period is generally bad strategy.
And I will give him a little bit of credit. I tanked for a long time, mainly because I was kind of trying to talk it out to my viewers on stream.
Yeah.
So that's make it took probably take longer than it really should have, but I did tank for a while about it because I was trying to figure out what the heck this could mean, and really I was infatuated with the, like I mentioned earlier, the small bet, big bet line. I was just like, what have I seen this before, and what usually is it?
Yeah, it's very odd, that he didn't polarize himself until the end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a sense, his turn bet, the fact that he bets the turn at all, is a little bit polarizing, but the fact that it's so small, it's strange. It's a strange bet to make, especially with pocket 9s. Not that pocket 9s have any type of showdown value, but it's still odd that he would bet again.
Yeah.
What the heck does he think you called with?
Yeah, I think the only thing that he can really try to, like, that I could have, like, missed with or whatever would be, like, some sort of, like, king-queen suited where we flopped a gutter. But that's pretty optimistic thinking on his part that I could have something like that. And I'm just going to fold it anyway, so he might as well just check and win against it.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you have a gut shot, then he's winning anyway. Why are you trying to bluff somebody, especially on the river, right? On the river, king-queen has king-high.
Right.
And pocket 9s is beating king-high. So there's really no reason to shove if you think you might be beating a gut shot that missed.
Right.
That hand can never call you. So, yeah, this is a strange play by someone that I think is probably a strange player and just didn't know how to stop. He started betting and he just couldn't stop.
Yeah. He's like, well, I've gone this far.
Yeah, I mean, he 3-bet, then he bet, then he bet, then he shoved. And it's not an easy call. I didn't immediately say, oh, Derek, you have to call. I mean, my first instinct was to call as we talked it through. But I also was fully aware that this could end up being bad news, especially with that huge bet on the end. It was hard for me to come up with a bluff, though. We were talking about kings or queens or jacks. I really don't see him doing that with those hands. Very strange. Regardless.
Yeah.
Strange all around.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder what he does with those hands. Like, if he does that with nines, does he do that with kings? Like, is he just like, well, I'm just going to turn my kings into a bluff and hope he folds an ace?
Yeah, probably not, because he has that little glimmer of hope that you can have a pair of tens all along. When he bets so small on the turn, I don't know what tens you would ever have, Derek, but if you do have one, you should probably call that turn bet as well. It's small enough, offering you almost 5-1, you should call, right?
Yeah.
So, you always bring hands that are fun to dig into. You really do.
Cool. I'm glad you dug that one. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what's the streaming schedule now before we say goodbye? Let people know what's going on.
Yeah. So actually, coming up, it'll be Tuesday. Yeah. So you guys will be listening to this on Friday. So yeah, coming up on Tuesday will be my weekly home game. And I will also be hosting what is called the World Series of Home Games, which is basically a tournament where all of the different guys and girls who have these private home games essentially puts teams together, and those teams compete together in one big tournament. So it's my turn to host that as well. So if you've been thinking about checking out my stream, that would be a pretty fun night to do it. It's also a night where we usually crack open a bunch of beers, and well, that's a lot of our streams, but particularly on that night, we crack open a few beers and have a good time. So if you're listening to this before Tuesday, the 2nd of February, swing on by and check it out. It'll be fun.
That sounds amazing. I hope I can join. I'm going to try to free up my schedule that night. So Groundhog Day, Tuesday, February 2nd. It's the World Series of Home Games, and I hope to be playing in that on Team Killingbird if possible.
We got to bring home that trophy.
Yeah, buddy. Well, yeah, I'll let you know as soon as I can whether I can be a part of that night. That sounds like a really great time. So I'm glad you're feeling better, and on behalf of all the listeners, thank you for coming back on the podcast. We always love hearing your voice.
Thank you, my friend. Had a blast.
Absolutely. So for Derek Killingbird Tenbush, and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
Like they do in Texas plays. Fold 'em, let 'em hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a my poker face. She's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a my poker face. She's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a my poker face. She's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a my poker face. She's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. love nobody. Can't read my, no, she can't read a